there in Paris. Tens of thousands of people bringing in the new year. 2025 is upon us there in Europe in several different countries. You can see the Champs-Élysées, the Arc de Triomphe, incredible display there. We also saw those celebrations taking place in Berlin. So many people outside bringing in this next year, 2025, but also lots of celebrations, of course, taking place among family, among friends inside. We want to actually go to Madrid now, a country that's just seen the new year coming in, and we can join potentially a family celebration taking place there in Madrid. I believe we have Yasmina Garcia. There she is, along with her family. Hello, Yasmina. We love your outfit. Who's there behind you? Are you celebrating with your family tonight?
Yes, I am. Happy New Year. In Spain is already the New Year, so Happy New Year to all of you. And yes, I'm here with my family. And well, we just had the 12 Grapes of Luck, which is a very big tradition here in Spain.
Yeah, tell us about these traditions. Of course, every country does something different on New Year's, and these are our uvas de la suerte, good luck grapes, right? So what takes place there at the stroke of midnight with these grapes in Spain?
Right, so the center of the festivities is the clock in the center of Madrid in Puerta del Sol. So as this clock strikes midnight, we have to eat one grape for each chime of the clock. And the goal is to finish all your grapes before the last bell tolls, which is quite a challenge, let me tell you. I think that you've seen us, struggling there a little bit earlier.
I mean, has everyone done it behind you? Did everybody get their grapes done in time?
Yes, everybody has done it on time. We have, we are set to have a very, very fortunate year.
And do you know, Yasmin, I mean, this is an interesting tradition. I haven't seen this done in many other countries. Do you know where this comes from? But where does this grape tradition begin?
Yeah, well, the tradition, is a little bit unclear where it comes from. But the first reports come from 1882. It looks like back in the day, the elites in Spain used to have champagne and grapes for dinner at New Year's Eve. And in 1882, a group of Madrileños, as a way of mocking the rich, let's say, went to Puerta del Sol to eat grapes in an ironic way. It looks like the on, and it develops, into what it is today.
I love it. I think it's a fantastic tradition. I hope this brings you and your entire family all kinds of luck. Just before we let you go, is there anything you're hoping to see in this new year in 2025?
Well, I think that today in Spain, everybody is thinking about the victims of the flash flooding that happened in the western region of Spain, in Valencia, back in October. So what I hope for this next year is for all these people to get some kind of normality back into their lives. I think that that's what everybody in Spain is thinking today.
Well, Yasmina, thank you for inviting us into your home with your family to celebrate New Year's in a very unique Spanish way with those grapes. Thanks again, and Happy New Year to you and all of your family.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
And Europe continues to bring in the New Year celebrations across the continent, including in Paris, where, wow, that celebration well and truly underway. You can barely see the Arc de Triomphe there in Paris amid all of those lights, fireworks going off. We're about 9 or 10 minutes now into the new year across much of the continent there in Europe. That is the display there in the City of Lights. Looks like we may be getting back to the grand finale. Let's just listen in there on those festivities in Paris. slate the show. That is going to be hard to beat. We still, of course, have plenty of fireworks shows to come, not least in London. In less than an hour or so, we'll be heading over there. The celebrations will be taking place there along the Thames. I believe we actually have our colleague Greg McKenzie, who's there in London for us ahead of that big celebration. Greg, it's great to see you. We're closing in on midnight, of course, in London, aren't we? What is the atmosphere like where you are?
Well, the atmosphere here is incredible. We're just under an hour now away from 2025, where behind me, the iconic London Eye will come alive with 12,000 fireworks, a 12-minute spectacular. There will be music synchronized with those fireworks. I'd just like to add, London hosts the biggest fireworks display in Europe. So those pictures you've just seen in Paris, they're nothing compared to what you're about to see here in London. 100,000 people have managed to get tickets here. We're along the iconic River Thames here in central London, and ultimately people will watch the new year come in. Big Ben, you'll hear the chimes dead on midnight. The chimes will ring, Big Ben will ring, and that will mark the beginning, the first few seconds of 2025. Now, each year in London, the fireworks have a theme. Last year, it was unity, to bring the whole country together. The London Mayor has told the BBC in the last few hours, this year's theme will be hope. There will be messages played out in tribute to army veterans, to the D-Day landings, and lots more past of yesteryear will be remembered in the year that is being told is hope. That is what we're being told is the theme for this year. And ultimately, this is and will be the biggest fireworks display in Europe. 12,000 fireworks over 12 minutes. It takes them months to organise the event and 5 days to actually rig the fireworks to the London Eye behind me, which will come alive. The midnight sky will be alight with colour, and there's also a light show this year, something we haven't seen before. Last year it was drones. This year we're told 420 lights will illuminate the London sky here as it marks the beginning of 2025 as we say goodbye to what was 2024.
Greg, it's hard to believe that any show could be bigger than what we just saw in Paris, so we are looking forward to seeing what takes place behind you in less than an hour. In fact, you can join Greg, you can join Nikki Schiller coming up in less than an hour. We will have special coverage of that London fireworks spectacular, along with the best of the New Year's celebrations from around the world. That's coming up right here on BBC News. Special programming starting at the bottom of the hour. That's 11:30 GMT tonight. And of course, plenty of other cities, plenty of other countries already bringing in the new year. These pictures showing the spectacular fireworks display which took place earlier in Hong Kong there. Taipei also putting on quite the show to welcome in 2025. Around the world and across the UK, you're watching BBC News. All right, let's take a look at some other stories making headlines at this hour. The veteran BBC DJ Johnny Walker has died at the age of 79, just 2 months after stepping down from the Radio 2 rock show and sounds of the 70s because of his ill health. He first joined the BBC back in 1969 with his lunchtime Radio 1 show, pioneering new names such as Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, and Steve Harley. Wayne Rooney has left Plymouth Argyle by mutual consent 7 months after being appointed head coach. Rooney recorded just 1 win in his last 14 games as manager, with the team now bottom of the championship table. The former England captain thanked fans for their support and said that Argyle would always hold a special place in his heart. And notable names have been reacting after being recognized in the New Year honors list. Stephen Fry said that he was startled and enchanted to receive a knighthood, while the Happy Valley actor Sarah Lancashire said that being made a CBE was an unexpected delight. More than 1,200 people have been recognized in the list. You're live with BBC News. The world is, of course, still remembering the former president, Jimmy Carter, here in the U.S. Much of Jimmy Carter's legacy was built after he left the White House through his humanitarian work. He and his wife, Rosalind, helped to build, renovate, and repair more than 4,000 homes through their partnership with Habitat for Humanity, an organization that provides affordable housing to disadvantaged families. They also established the nonprofit Carter Center back in the 1980s, focusing on global health and peace efforts. The center has worked to end guinea worm disease. That's a parasitic infection that affected an estimated 3.5 million people per year across Asia and Africa in 1986. In 2023, only 14, that's right, 14 human infections were registered at that time. Well, let's talk more about Mr. Carter's impact on global health with Dr. William Foege. He served as the director for the Center for Disease Control in his administration. It's great to have you on to talk about this legacy of President Carter, really specifically after he left the White House. So much work he did. I love this memory you've actually shared previously about then former President Carter. Apparently, he called you on the phone and he floated the idea to you of getting involved in public health after his presidency. Is that right?
That's correct. And he also, as his side of the bargain, said he would become interested in global health. And he did exactly that. But he became more than interested. He became obsessed with it. And then he became an activist. And he made many trips to Africa. And I think the most significant thing that he demonstrated was that if we want to attack public health problems, you need a combination of both politicians and public health people, because public health cannot be funded unless there's some political decision to do that. And he would meet with heads of state, they would get their cabinet together, he would make his case, and if the head of state wanted to do this, he would direct his Minister of Finance and his Minister of Health to get involved. So he really demonstrated a new way to attack global health.
I believe he famously, didn't it? He negotiated a ceasefire, I think it was in Sudan, just so that his public health workers could come in and start to do what was necessary to battle disease there. Just going in and even, getting both sides to agree to a ceasefire.
Exactly. And that's much more difficult than anyone can understand, to get people to stop fighting for 3 months and then for 6 months in order to work on diseases.
Just incredible. Let's talk about that guinea worm. We mentioned some of those statistics about how much he really was able to have success in battling that parasite. In fact, he said back in 2015, he'd like the last guinea worm to die before I do. He was nearly successful in that, wasn't he?
It was very close. And one of the problems with guinea worm is it's not a disease of cities. Therefore, ministers of health often didn't know they had a problem. I think one of the great stories is when he met with the president of Nigeria, President Babangida. Nigeria was reporting about 5,000 or 6,000 cases a year, but they did a one-time survey and they found almost 700,000 cases of guinea worm at one time. And President Babangida was so impressed with that, he put $1 million of Nigerian money into the program that day.
This wasn't flashy work, was it? A lot of what Jimmy Carter did after the presidency was pretty quiet. It was pretty low profile, working on diseases that, like guinea worm, that few people knew about. Why did he choose, do you think, to go that route? Really, a lot of this kind of under the radar.
I think he chose this because they were truly neglected diseases. And he would often ask, if we would propose a program, who else is working on this? And if other people were working on it, he would say, they don't need me. And so he was after the neglected diseases. And now there are programs for most of the neglected diseases, river blindness and trachoma and lymphatic filariasis and so forth. So he's had an enormous impact on the trajectory of global health.
Yeah, quite the legacy that he leaves behind. You were his former CDC director, also helping to eradicate smallpox, we should mention. But just in terms of the Carter Center, helping some 22 countries eliminate at least one disease within their borders. William Foege, we thank you for your time. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much for having me.
And to continue our discussion of the late Jimmy Carter and his legacy, we want to bring in the Reverend Al Sharpton now, an American civil rights activist. Great to have you on the BBC. As we remember President Carter, what kind of legacy do you think he leaves behind, particularly when it comes to civil rights?
Well, you must remember Jimmy Carter was the first president elected from the Deep South in 100 years. He came after the nation had been shaken by the Watergate scandal of then President Richard Nixon, who was forced to resign from office in the middle of that scandal. We were still in the grip of the Vietnam War. And in all of that, we saw Jimmy Carter, an unknown governor from Georgia in the Deep South, become president. He immediately embraced Martin Luther King Sr. Dr. King had been killed some 8 or 9 years before Carter's election. He embraced his father, he embraced his widow, and worked with civil rights leaders like Vernon Jordan and Jesse Jackson and others of that time. And he fought for voting rights. He called for racial discrimination to be not only outlawed, but enforced, for voting rights to be enforced. And Jimmy Carter led this nation by appointing one of Dr. King's chief aides, Andrew Young, the ambassador from the United States to the United Nations. So he not only talked the talk, he walked the walk and became a unifying force around race after the Nixon-Ford era.
He was also a very religious man, wasn't he, Jimmy Carter, a self-described born-again Christian. You wrote about his religious background recently. You wrote, he didn't use it for show. This was something that he lived. Explain what you mean by that.
He taught Sunday school. Even when he was in the White House, he would teach Sunday school. In his home town of Plains, Georgia, he taught Sunday school until he was disabled not long before his passing. And anytime I would meet him, he would say to me, Reverend Al, I see you out there with your activism, but what about your ministry? I said, well, that is my ministry, social justice. I don't pastor one parish. I lead a national organization based on my religious beliefs in the tradition of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he said, well, don't forget your prayer life. He was that in private. He was that in private exchanges. He did not use religion as theater. He used it because he believed in it, both before he went into the presidency and the many decades after.
Reverend, do you think a man like Jimmy Carter, of course, who famously promised he would never tell a lie to the nation, do you think he would have a chance of being elected president today?
It would be challenging at best. I think that we are in a culture now that we accept duplicity, we accept a chauvinism against women, against blacks and others of color, against immigrants that has become popular and is the day's body politic. It would be very challenging for Jimmy Carter, but that is why it is important we raise the point around the world that it is better to have a humanitarian that believes in justice, and one election should not be able to turn that around. If we really want to honor Jimmy Carter, we honor what he stood for and what he enacted.
Just briefly, we have about a minute or so left here, Reverend, but what kind of legacy do you think he leaves behind politically? Obviously a Democratic one-term president. How do you think his party will be looking back? There are a lot of people making some parallels between his presidency and the presidency of Joe Biden.
I think that we could say the legacy of Jimmy Carter is it's better to serve for what is right than to win for what is wrong. History will say Jimmy Carter was a noble man, even won a Nobel Peace Prize after being president. History will say others won elections, but helped to bring the country back to days of draconian times. And I think that I would rather be one term about what is righteous than to be able to be elected twice to try and rescind the rights of human beings.
Reverend Al Sharpton there on the legacy of Jimmy Carter. We thank you for your time. Happy New Year to you, Reverend. Thank you for joining us tonight on
Happy New
BBC
Year.
News as we are counting down, of course, the minutes now to New Year's in 2025 in the city of London. We can show you the scene there, the London Eye along the Thames. We're expecting what Greg Mackenzie promises us is the largest fireworks spectacular in all of Europe. So definitely stay tuned for that. If you're judging by past years, it is an absolutely spectacular show there in London. We'll have special coverage of New Year's Eve and the celebrations coming up there in London. In just a matter of minutes, Greg and our colleague Nikki Schiller will be taking over from here. And there it goes. All right, that's all from us here in Washington. Take care.
Hello there. We've got more strong winds, heavy rain and some snow as we head into the new year. The heavy rain has moved away from Scotland, but it's moved further south, and it's across this part of northwest England that we have an amber rain warning from the Met Office. 100 millimetres of rain in the hills, likely to be flooding and travel disruption. There's our band of rain in the morning. On the rain end, particularly south of it, some very gusty winds arriving, particularly so in the southwestern coastal areas. North of the rain band, the winds won't be as strong, but it's getting colder. There'll be some snow and ice to start the day in northern Scotland. Through the morning, this heavy rain and squally winds will push down into southern England. Then things calm down for a while. Another band of rain and hill snow moves southwards across Scotland towards Northern Ireland, later into northern England. Sunshine and snow showers continue in northern Scotland. And we're getting a northerly wind. It's not going to be as strong as the southwesterly wind ahead of the rain, but it is going to be introducing colder air. Last of any mild areas across southernmost parts of England, but it'll be a wet end to the day. That weather front does clear away, and then we introduce this Arctic air right the way across the whole of the country. Temperatures will be dropping. A widespread frost for Thursday morning. Could be some icy patches following any overnight showers as well. Most of the snow showers on Thursday are going to be across northern Scotland. A few wintry showers for Northern Ireland, near the west coast of Wales, more especially along some of these North Sea coasts. But for large parts of the country, it's going to be dry and sunny. Certainly going to feel a lot colder everywhere. But away from those North Sea coasts, at least the winds are not going to be particularly strong. But we're going to stay in that colder air as we head towards the end of the week. And there'll be some more snow showers across the north and northeast of Scotland. A few more wintry showers for Northern Ireland, perhaps towards the North Wales. And a few showers getting close to those North Sea coasts. But again, many places on Friday will be dry and sunny. And again, it's cold. Temperatures in Scotland struggling to get above freezing. Things could get very interesting later in the weekend. This low pressure threatening to bring some wet weather into the cold air on Sunday. But ahead of that on Saturday, that weather front across the north may well bring some rain, sleet and snow to Scotland. One or two wintry showers further south. Some patches of fog for northern parts of the UK. The winds are going to be quite light. It is going to feel cold as we head into the weekend. Again, highs of only around 3 to 5 Celsius.
Witness the magic when experience meets raw talent.
There has to be a moment where I can say, wow, this is beautiful.
I love that.
Renowned icons with emerging artists on a unique learning journey.
If you do it with conviction.
So take that further.
From mentor to protege.
Everything what I tell her is doing right away.
We're going to have some fun.
Watch a legacy unfold.
They really are here to help us. Bravo!
Arts in Motion. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
I define populism as exploiting a grievance rather than solving it, as riding the anger rather than providing the answer.
Whatever time of night, day, couldn't sleep at night, you go in the studio and you just create music, put something down if you had an idea.
I think every athlete goes through their end of their career in a very different way.
When big names talk, they talk to us.
Michael Palin, Boy George, Juliette Binoche, welcome to This Cultural Life. Some of the world's leading artistic figures revealed to me their influences.
Suddenly there was a little glimpse that perhaps there was a future doing comedy.
And the experiences that have inspired their own work.
Art is so important because it really can transform you inside.
I'm very different to the person I was 10 years ago.
For a fascinating insight into what fires the creative imagination, join me, John Wilson, for This Cultural Life. Watch on iPlayer.
I'm Nicky Schiller. Welcome to the roof of Broadcasting House here in central London and to New Year's Eve Live as we count down to 2025 here in London and across the United Kingdom. We are now less than half an hour away from welcoming in the new year. Behind me, you can see the iconic Regent Street. This building that I'm standing on actually originally built back in 1932. Around 3 miles from here is the River Thames, and that is where the world famous fireworks are going to take place in less than half an hour's time. It is, of course, 25 years since the first fireworks display in London. Lots of people think they've been going for decades, but actually not. Just 25 years back in 1999 to see in the Millennium, which is when the first fireworks display was. Now, crucial to any new year is knowing when a clock strikes midnight. And of course, here in London, we have probably the most famous clock in the world on the Houses of Parliament. It is, of course, known as Big Ben. So let me put that up on the right-hand side of your screen so you can see how long we have to go until we welcome it in the new year. Let me also show you the live pictures. Thousands of people are gathering to watch the celebrations and the fireworks. There you can see lit up in purple is the London Eye. Now originally that was known as the Millennium Wheel. It was going to be a temporary structure here just to see in the new millennium, but of course everybody loved it and it stayed in London, and now it is one of the iconic landmarks that people from all over the world come to see in London. And there it is lit up at the moment, and that is where the fireworks display will kick off from in around 28 minutes time. So we are yet to see in the new year here, but much of Europe has, in the last half an hour, welcomed in 2025. We've seen fireworks displays in places like Paris, and you've seen them in Berlin, and there have been some in Madrid. And that is where we are going to head now, and we are going to speak to Yasmina Garcia, who has been celebrating with her family. Thank you very much for joining us live on BBC News, Yasmina. Just tell us what the celebrations are like in Spain, because a lot of Spanish people, you stay indoors for around midnight, don't you?
Yes, that's right. The usual thing here in Spain is eating the 12 grapes of luck. So basically, all of us start our new year with our mouths full of grapes. They are a sign of abundance, and the challenge is to eat 12 grapes with the chimes of the clock when the clock strikes midnight. So it is a little bit difficult.
And did you and your family manage to do it?
Yes, we have, and it is said that that is, well, you know, a sign of you having a fortunate next year. So I think that we can count ourselves lucky here.
And is it a tradition that has been going on for decades in Spain? How did it come about?
Well, it was a tradition that started a little bit as a joke in a way, because back in the 1800s, the elites in Spain used to drink champagne and eat grapes in New Year's Eve. And in 1882, there were newspapers reports of a group of Madrileños that wanted to mock the rich by going to Puerta del Sol, which is in the center of Madrid, where the clock, you know, where everybody follows the clock, and eat these grapes ironically. Looks like the tradition caught on, and it evolved into what it is today.
You've got your family behind you. They had a glass of something sparkling as well to welcome in the new year?
Absolutely, we do.
I know I know that Spain is famous for cava. I have a couple of my friends who live in Spain who like a cava. Has that been flowing this evening?
Exactly. You are absolutely right. We are drinking cava and also a little bit of cider. We're eating, you know, Christmas delicacies like turrón and polvorones, and you know, and the youngsters will go out and party all night after that and have churros and chocolate for breakfast. That is the tradition.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. A lot of sugar anyway to keep them going. What are your hopes for the next 12 months?
Well, I think that this year, the thoughts of every Spaniard are with the victims of the Valencia flash flooding that happened back in October. I think that our hope from here is for all those people that, have suffered with all of this to go back to some resemblance of normality as soon as possible.
Absolutely. I was in Valencia covering those floods, and my heart goes out to those people as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Yasmina, and thank you to your family, and a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year! Happy New Year!
Oh, what a lovely family there in Madrid for us. Now, we are less than 25 minutes away from the fireworks here in London, so let's head to the banks of the River Thames. My colleague Greg McKenzie is there for us this evening. Greg, what's the atmosphere like with you?
Well, the atmosphere here, Nikki, is incredible. We're 25 minutes away from hearing those fireworks. Now, behind me, the London Eye will come alive. 12,000 fireworks during a 12-minute spectacular. This will be the biggest fireworks display in Europe, beating Paris, who've just had theirs. And ultimately, this is the place to be. The hottest ticket in town, some say. 100,000 people managed to get tickets, and they are just behind the camera here. There's tens and tens of thousands of people just queuing up, all looking up to the London Eye, and they will be treated to that spectacular in just under 24 minutes time. Now, as the Big Ben chimes chime at midnight, that will mark the beginning, and officially we will be in 2025, the first few seconds. And then you'll see the fireworks, and many will be watching from around the world, millions. In fact, it's the most watched programme here on the BBC as of last year, those watching the fireworks unfold here. Now, ultimately, there'll be music playing as well, so that's synchronised with the fireworks. We're also being treated to a lightning show this year, something we've not seen before. Last year, it was drones that were lit up in the London sky. This year, we're told there's no drones, but it will be a spectacular of a light show. There are also some surprises that apparently only people watching the BBC will see in that live broadcast, but ultimately the London Eye will come alive very soon. They've done some dry rehearsals for the countdown here, which was loud, but it wasn't as loud as it's going to be very, very soon. Now, people in the audience, the crowds here, I've been speaking to them all night, asking, what time did you get here? For some of them, 8 o'clock. They've been queuing up to see these fireworks. They've got prime position just in front of behind the camera. You can't see them, but there are tens and tens of thousands of people. All nationalities here: China, Italy, Japan, America. There's Canadians here, Australians here, and the world's media are parked along the embankment as we are broadcasting this live, as this will be one of the most watched events around the world as the world waits for London to start celebrating the beginning of 2025. And what a year 2024 was. I mean, so much happening. An election, we've got a new president in the States, and so much more. So 2025, Nikki, the theme here is this year, the London Mayor has told us, the theme is hope. That is what the theme of these fireworks will be. Last year, it was unity, bringing the country together. This year, it's simply hope. Happy New Year.
Yeah, indeed, Greg. Now, I remember last year you were a lot closer to some of those people. They kept you away from the crowds, causing trouble last year, I remember. It is interesting because a lot of people think, as I mentioned earlier, that the fireworks have been going for decades and decades and decades. But actually, it was 1999 for the millennium that we saw the first fireworks down there on the Thames.
Well, that's right, it was. And do you remember that year that there were no fireworks? It was all in secret because of COVID. So that it took place down the river in secret. Nobody knew where it was taking place. Nobody could see them. And then all of a sudden they just appeared. So it's fairly new, relatively new. And people are charged to get in here. So tickets range from £10 to £50. So the £10 tickets are the ones here along the embankment, which, to be honest, I think is the best view. The higher priced tickets are those on Westminster Bridge, right in front of Big Ben. Those are the premium tickets, which cost about £50. There was a bit of controversy over the pricing of these tickets, but the Mayor says this event does have to be paid for, and it's subsidised through the ticket sales. And he says this is the eyes of the world will be watching. And he says that this event brings in millions to the economy, and thus it's worth putting on such a spectacular show. So 12 minutes of fireworks, 12,000, Nikki, 12,000 fireworks. There's a team of 30 technicians behind me in that eye, sorting all the last-minute preparations. I mean, only a few minutes away now, about 20 minutes now, I think. But ultimately, it's one of the biggest fireworks. It is the biggest fireworks display in Europe.
Greg, we will be back with you, and of course we will have that full display. I think they think it's going to last around 14 minutes live here on BBC News at midnight. You can see the Big Ben clock there is counting down for us. But there are a lot of places that are already in 2025. One of the first, a lot earlier, was Auckland in New Zealand. It was followed by Sydney in Australia, and more recently we've had quite a few displays because there's a bit of a competition that goes on between the cities in terms of fireworks displays. Sydney do a big one, here in London, but I want to show you some pictures from Abu Dhabi and their fireworks display that took place a little earlier, because it was quite spectacular. This, of course, is this is Abu Dhabi, and it is saying Happy New Year, and the fireworks are going off there. And Dubai as well. We've also had fireworks from Dubai. Dubai, of course, has the Burj Khalifa, that 830-metre huge tall building in the centre of Dubai, and that is a beautiful, iconic location for them to fire all of those fireworks and displays off, and you can see those gorgeous pictures of them. And of course, that's the nice thing about New Year, because we get to see some of the lovely images from around the world, and we could also show you some from Bahrain as well. You can never have too many fireworks on a New Year's Eve, and these are the ones from Bahrain. Again, gorgeous, going up there into the sky, lighting up the night sky. And this is, of course, what has happened around the world as various locations have welcomed in the new year. And we'll try over the next 45 minutes or so to show you some of the fireworks that have taken place already. And of course, we will also look ahead to some of the places that are still to welcome in 2025. I just want to show you, though, some pictures out of Syria, because of course it has been less than a month since the fall of Bashar al-Assad, and they have been celebrating the new year in Syria, and in particular in Damascus. These are the pictures that have come in from Damascus. The first New Year's Eve since the end of the regime was marked, as you can see, by a big party. We've seen the Syrian capital heavily guarded, I have to say, by armed rebels, but they were guarding what you can see on screen now. A DJ and fireworks, and the mood appeared jubilant, as you can see, as of course it was less than 1 month since we had the fall of Bashar al-Assad, who had been a 13-year bloody civil war there in that country, in Syria. So they were welcoming in the new year there. But of course, some countries, it is harder to welcome in the new year because of the wars that are taking place, in particular, of course, in Ukraine, which is marking its third new year since the Russian invasion in 2022. And there was actually a curfew in much of the country. So, for example, in Kyiv, no one was allowed out after 10 o'clock in the evening. So there weren't the celebrations that we've been seeing from around the rest of the world. But President, and this actually, I'm being told, is a live shot from Kyiv at the moment. So you can see very quiet there. This is the iconic centre of Kyiv that you often see on a lot of the pictures. And there you can see that the lights are on, but there is no traffic at all there. Very little going around, probably just the security forces there, because there is this curfew in force in across much of Ukraine, and those pictures live from the capital. But we did hear from the Ukrainian leader, President Zelensky, who gave a New Year address. He said that his country will do all it can to end the war with Moscow in 2025 and halt what he called the Russian aggression. You can see him standing there in front of the iconic Mother Ukraine monument in Kyiv. He also said that Ukraine would need to fight next year to bolster its position both militarily and ahead of any talks to end Russia's 3-year invasion. But there you can see Mother Ukraine lit up. Let's have a listen to some of what President Zelensky said in his New Year address. Of course, his words are spoken by a translator, but let's have a listen.
May 2025 become our year, the year of Ukraine. We know peace will not be gifted to us, but we will do everything to stop Russia and end the war. This is what each of us dreams of. Behind each of us stands Mother Ukraine. She deserves to live in peace. I wish this for all of us.
So there, President Zelensky in his New Year address to the people of Ukraine. And as we saw from the pictures in Kyiv, celebrations not taking place there. And that has happened actually here in the UK, but it's because of the weather. It doesn't seem that the weather got the memo that it is New Year's Eve and there are normally celebrations, because there have been high winds, risk of flooding, and a lot of fireworks displays have had to be cancelled. For example, in Newcastle, also in Blackpool and in Bangor, they have been called off. And normally at this time on a New Year's Eve, we would be heading to Edinburgh for the world famous Hogmanay celebrations. There is normally a giant street party in the centre of Edinburgh, but that had to be cancelled last night because of the fears of the high winds and the flooding. So a lot of those celebrations that would have taken place outside have moved inside. So I think definitely the pubs of Edinburgh will be quite full at this moment. But our correspondent Katrina Renton has been in Edinburgh during the day to assess the disappointment because of those Hogmanay street parties being cancelled.
Well, good evening from Edinburgh, and like you, we have been watching the pictures coming in from all around the world of famous landmarks being lit up by fireworks as countries welcome in the new year there. And of course, Edinburgh would normally be part of that. The beautiful skyline here behind me would normally be lit up with a spectacular firework display, but not this year. Organisers had to take the decision, they said, on safety grounds because of warnings for bad weather. And this happened in 2003 and in 2006 when the outdoor events had to be cancelled because of adverse conditions. People we've been speaking to have come here from all over the world. I've spoken to people from New Zealand, Australia, Dubai, Malaysia, and you know, there's disappointment, of course, especially for people who have come here especially to experience Edinburgh's world famous Hogmanay, but of course realism as well, that you could not take any risks with safety. And there has been some atrocious weather in parts of Scotland today, and organisers taking that into account as well, that if people were going to be making long and dangerous journeys to come here, they needed to have warning, of course, that this was going to be cancelled, and they needed to give them advance warning of that. Now, people who have bought tickets will be refunded. Organisers have said that they will be making that information available to people. So let me tell you though, Edinburgh, indoors even, is a wonderful place to bring in the new year. And from all of us here in Edinburgh, we wish you a very happy new year.
Katrina Renton in Edinburgh, and as Katrina mentioned, there are people from all over the world that have headed for Edinburgh for those festivities that are now heading indoors. We spoke to some of them.
As Australians, we understand weather sometimes takes control of everything. We know extreme weather in the other extreme, which is heat. So we're not surprised, but disappointed.
We're super bummed out. Obviously, we totally understand safety is definitely the most important thing, and the weather is getting a bit extreme. But we were really looking forward to it, but it's just a reason to come back another time.
We're from Chicago,
in the States, and we were really looking forward to going to the festival, but unfortunately the weather had other plans.
A little bit disappointed. And we wanted to do the Torchlight Parade, and that was cancelled, and even the castle's closed, so it's a real shame, but never mind. That's and we're from Wellington, which is actually known for its wind, and we're sort of thinking this isn't quite as windy as even we know it.
Oh, they're brave people up there in Edinburgh, putting a brave face on the fact that those street parties are not going ahead. Now, let me take you back to the live pictures that we are getting in from the banks of the River Thames, which is where in around, well, less than 10 minutes now, we will have the fireworks display. There you can see lit up gorgeously is the London Eye, and you can see the rest of London around there. The banks of the River Thames, you can see their Big Ben, the Houses of Parliament. That is where the fireworks are going to take place, and as we've been mentioning all evening, you are going to be able to see all of that fireworks display live with us here on BBC News, so don't go anywhere. I know that some people around the world will already be in the new year. You may be up early on New Year's Day wherever you are. Perhaps you are in New Zealand. Well, you can watch our fireworks. If you are in the UK, you might be at a big party with lots of friends and you've got us on a screen there, or indeed you may be just sitting at home on your own welcoming in the new year, maybe with a glass of champagne and keeping your pets happy, because of course New Year, not a good time for a lot of pets. A lot of dogs and cats, they get scared by the fireworks, so you may be inside just watching it on the television with us, but you can see there that beautiful image of the London Eye lit up in purple, getting ready along with those thousands of people that are on the banks of the River Thames. Of course, when the fireworks first started, it wasn't a ticketed event, and there were so many people that arrived in central London to witness those early events that the authorities then decided that there did need to be some ticketing, because it is not only a case of getting into London, but of course after you've witnessed the fireworks, you then have to get home. And getting home on public transport, on the tube, on the buses at that time of night with that many people was difficult, which is why they made it a ticketed event, and that is why not everyone can see them in person, which is why we here on the BBC broadcast them for you so you can witness them there. So that the live scene. Now, I mentioned earlier there is a bit of a battle with the fireworks displays that go on around the world. London, as Greg was mentioning earlier, has the biggest one in Europe, they say, but when it comes to worldwide fireworks displays, then Sydney is definitely up there amongst the others. And let me show you some of the pictures from Sydney from earlier today. There you can see the iconic Harbour Bridge near the centre of Sydney being lit up by those fireworks, the Opera House. People crowded in there. I think it was over 1 million that were in Sydney to watch the fireworks display, which similarly to London is set to music, which I think is what makes them very special, when there is a soundtrack to go along with those fireworks. For the first time this year, those fireworks were from both sides of the Harbour Bridge. Now, of course, it is New Year already in Australia, so let's go live to Sydney, and Bianca Balsler is there. And I think, Bianca, are you on a beach?
Good day, Nikki. Yes, I am. Welcome to Sydney, welcome to Bondi Beach, and welcome to 2025. You've got less than 10 minutes to go until your New Year's Eve countdown. Well, we are more than 10 hours into New Year already. And how good does this look? We've got lots of people here at the beach already. Some of them, in fact, waking up here on the sand. It was a big night, as you said, and as you just saw, a beautiful, incredible fireworks display on Sydney Harbour, stretching 7 kilometres. It was bigger and better than I have ever seen before. There were 23,000 pyrotechnic shots, 40,000 ground shots, and 13,000 other aerial shells. It was incredible. And the technology, I must say, continues to advance. Every year it gets bigger and better. Some of the fireworks were even displaying emu tracks. This is how the technology has advanced. It is incredible. The family that's organising the Sydney fireworks has been doing it for almost 30 years. They are a 7-generation pyrotechnics family that's been in the trade since the 1700s. So you can imagine it's a pretty big deal here. But it was a late night. So we've got lots of dusty heads this morning, lots of people trying to wash it off in the surf. Some people are trying to surf, but there aren't really any waves, so they're kind of just sitting there on their surfboards. And lots of people out here getting on with the day, getting on with the new year. Just over there, you can see a gym, and people are already getting started on their New Year's resolutions. And, you know, we've barely even hit lunchtime.
Bianca, what have you got in your hand? What have you been eating? Is it ice cream?
Nikki, this is a snow. Sorry, I was meant to put this down. This is a snow cone. Well, it was a snow cone, but it's 27 degrees here. It's very quickly melted. Beautiful weather here. I'm sorry to hear about the weather you've got in the UK. This year we've been very fortunate. It was 27 degrees last night as well on the harbour. For those 1 million people watching, 1,000 people on boats, it was a great night. But yes, unfortunately, the snow cones don't survive.
Yes, you have the benefit of having lovely weather down in Australia compared to the cold and the wind and the rain here. Is there going to be a barbie on the beach? And I'm amazed that there are so many people who are up at this time after the New Year's Eve celebrations. Do you think some of them probably slept on the beach?
Nikki, I think when I arrived here, there were certainly some people who looked a bit weathered and that they had probably slept here. I actually found these sunglasses just lying about. It was a bit of a wild night here. Today there will be barbecues, there will be picnics. We're seeing a lot of people trundling their picnic baskets and blankets around. And lots of people getting on with their New Year's resolutions, whether it's getting fit. We've seen lots of people here wasting no time to start on their New Year's resolutions, running from Bondi to Bronte Beach. It's about a 4K run. Whether it's that or working on your mental health, we've seen people meditating as well. It's been amazing.
Bianca, I'm going to let you go off and do that because we're going to head back to London. These are the aerial pictures that are coming in from the helicopter. I can actually hear the helicopter above me here in London. We're on the roof of Broadcasting House. These are the pictures that we are seeing from central London. And look at that amazing image of the London Eye from the helicopter getting ready for the fireworks. Let's bring Greg Mackenzie back in. He is on the banks of the River Thames. Greg, excitement mounting.
Excitement is mounting. We're less than a few minutes away now until 2025 when that London Eye will come alive. 12,000 fireworks, an event that some say a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get to witness. 100,000 people are along the River Thames here on the embankment waiting to see that fireworks show that the Mayor says is the biggest fireworks show in Europe. 12,000 fireworks, and music will be synchronised along with that. We're being treated to a lighting show this year, something we've not seen before, the Mayor has told us. So a special surprise also. We don't know what that surprise is, but there will be a surprise during that fireworks display, which is about to take place here in central London. 90 seconds.
90 seconds. We are underway. We are 90 seconds away, as you heard from the announcement. Of course, it'll all get kicked off with those iconic chimes of Big Ben in central London. Those are the live pictures. You are going to be able to see all of the fireworks here on BBC News, along with those around 100,000 people that Greg mentioned in central London on the banks of the River Thames to witness, hopefully, fingers crossed, as good as, if not a better display than we had in Sydney. The countdown is underway. Let's join live here on BBC News, welcoming in 2025 with the London fireworks.
London. This is London. London town. Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. Tweaking, 120 on the M-way speeding.
Trust me, Daddy, there will always be a bit of my heart devoted to it.
So many people. Ladies and gentlemen, London is hard. Open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you cannot find reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions, feel that rain on your skin, feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Put yourself in words unspoken, live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins.
Let's take him back to 2024.
We're going in search of summer, but no sign of that across the UK, that's for sure.
It's been one of the soggiest summers on record.
Why does it always rain on me? Why does it always rain on me?
Call when we run down this rain.
Even when the sun is shining.
Why am I wet? Yeah, let's rain.
When skies are grey, hope is the way.
We needed something to brighten up the summer, and this is it.
Paris 2024!
A stunning games for Paralympics GB.
The bronze medal for Great Britain. It's a silver medal.
Gold for being brilliant!
Welcome to the final of Euro 2024.
Moment of brilliance from Bellingham! Now in the line draw! When I met you in the summer.
The 80th anniversary of D-Day.
We were fighting for freedom. Freedom for everyone, not only for us.
I feel very proud I did something for peace.
Even in the darkest moments, there is always hope.
As we start a new year, let's honor our history and never give up hope for the future.
No matter what happens, London will always be a city of hope and a place for everyone.
So let me get right to the point. I'm ready for this. You start me falling.
Thinking about me every night, oh, so that sweet like a soul. Say you can't sleep, baby, I know that's that me espresso. Move it all down, left to right, oh, switch it up like Nintendo. Say you can't sleep, baby, I know that's that me espresso.
You don't know you're beautiful. Only you know what I can see. You understand why I want you so desperately. Right now I'm looking at you and I can't believe you told me. You don't know you're beautiful.
We could go band for band. What a mill for the Maybach truck. It's got to the point that I don't even care. I got jewels in a safe that I don't even wear.
We like to party. Let's go.
There's a party going on right here. Let's celebrate. Come on now, celebrate your party with you. One more time.
Happy birthday to the London Eye.
We're gonna celebrate. One more time. We're gonna celebrate.
The London Eye, celebrating 25 years in London skyline.
Gonna burn this goddamn house right down. It's right on the dance floor. You better not kill the groove. Hey, hey, it's right on the dance floor. You better not kill the groove. This DJ gonna burn this goddamn house right down. DJ, let's go. Alright, just dance, baby.
There's a party downtown near Fifth Street. Everybody at the bar getting tipsy. Someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey. They know me exact, they just got a history. At the bottom of a bottle, don't miss me. Everybody at the bar getting tipsy.
We're in heaven. I need your love.
Never ever be alone. Don't stop thinking about tomorrow.
It's a new dawn, it's a new day. As long as I'm alive, then I'll be sports screen your pride.
I'll be standing there by you. I need your love.
We're in heaven. Yeah, pump it up while your feet are stumping. And the jam is bumping. Look ahead, the crowd is jumping. Pump it up a little more. Get the party going on the dance floor. See, 'cause that's where the party's at, and you'll find out if you do that.
Love is all that I need, and I'm
enter a new year, I always remember what Mrs. Brown says. In London, everyone is different. But that means anyone can fit in. I think she must be right, because although I don't look like anyone else, I really do feel at home. Happy New Year. Love from Paddington.
Wow is all I can say. Absolutely amazing display there in London. And can I be the first from everyone here at BBC News to wish you a very happy 2025. I have a glass of BBC water, nothing stronger for me because I am working, but I'm going to take a little sip and say wherever you are, however you are celebrating, I do hope that 2025 brings you everything that you wanted. And after that amazing start to the new year, can it get better? Let's head back to the Thames and my colleague Greg Mackenzie, who was right in front of it. Greg, that was amazing.
I mean, that was a spectacular. I mean, I haven't seen anything like it. I mean, I was there last year, the year before, and I think this year, definitely, that was something for the eyes. Look, everyone in front of me, there's tens of thousands of people just behind the cameras here that were just all in awe, just staring up at the fireworks. I mean, you heard the chimes of Big Ben. We are officially in 2025. It's a new year, Nikki. So happy New Year, and happy New Year to the 100,000 people that managed to get tickets to be here at the embankment. I mean, those fireworks were spectacular. There was references there. There were some speeches being played out, if you noticed. A reference to the D-Day landing. You also heard from Paddington, the creator. So lots of messages within that display. And then you just heard there Auld Lang Syne. So the song is now playing out, I guess. And people are now just kind of dancing here and hugging in front of me. And some people get quite emotional here along the River Thames. And I guess it marks the end of a year and into a new year and a new beginning for many. And this year's theme is hope. And hope is what the mayor says. He just says it's hope this year. So that display, the theme was hope for everyone.
Yeah, Greg, the projections onto the London Eye was something new this year. We saw some of the Euro 2024. Then at the end, we saw Paddington. Also caught my eye that it had happy birthday to me because, of course, it's the birthday of the London Eye being 25 years. That was something new this year that they were trying out, and it does seem to have just added that little bit extra.
It added that bit of je ne sais quoi, you know, it gave a bit extra this year. They didn't want to give too much away, but the mayor did say there were some surprises for us, and ultimately you saw them, that was it. Now, in terms of the drones, we had drones last year. There was a drone show. That wasn't this year, and they said it wasn't because of the weather. They just simply wanted to try something new with a lightning show. I was told 420 lights projected onto the London Eye to bring you that, and it was something special. It felt different this year. And like I say earlier, I was saying today, you know, they organised this way back in July, a meticulous planning. There's a crew of 32 technicians that run this show, and ultimately it is the biggest fireworks display in London, and to get to witness it right here, you just feel part of it.
Yeah, and Greg, the issue now is you've got to get home, and that is the case for those 100,000 people as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, for many, they're being told to head to neighbouring Waterloo. That's the station. It's a few miles away, actually. Westminster Station, which is right on top of us here, that is closed, and so is the embankment towards that direction. So many people will simply walk home from here. I will be walking back to the BBC very shortly to file for breakfast news and do all the colour from here tonight in terms of the morning. So you'll get a nice fresh TV piece from me for the morning.
Okay, Greg, I will let you go off and do that. Thank you to you and your crew there at the banks of the River Thames. Now, of course, a new year means for a lot of people they will make New Year's resolutions. I always make it to go to the gym more and to eat less, and I seem to fail every year. But someone who can talk us through whether resolutions work and is it worth doing them is Ria Freeman. She is the author of the book You've Got This. Ria, first of all, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you very much for joining us on BBC News. So, resolutions, lots of us make them. Are they a good idea?
If they're set like goals, absolutely, you can do brilliant things. But I think a lot of us fall into the trap of saying, you know, we want to get fitter or we want to lose weight, but we're quite vague, and that can mean they're really, really difficult to achieve.
So, if you are thinking about it, do they need to be realistic? And how, if they are, do you stick to them?
Well, that's a tricky thing. Realistic, yes, but I think it's really important to kind of dream big. So what do you really, really want to do? Because if you've got that passion to do it, you're going to be much more motivated when things get tricky. And then what you can do when you have got that plan is you can, if you think about being really specific, so exactly what you want to achieve. So how much weight do you want to lose? How much fitter do you want to be? What do you want to do with that? Then you can work it back when you know when you want to achieve that by, and start to put in sort of little time scales, little micro goals, little signposts essentially to let you know whether you're on track, whether you need to course correct, and help you to get there.
And I know you talk to, and if you go to a gym, they have a boost in numbers in January and February, say, and then it all tails off. So how do you keep it going?
Yeah, and you say gyms are a great example of this. So I think how to keep it going is, one thing is to think about these little goals. So if you've got a big weight loss goal, if you've got a big fitness goal, if you've got a big goal of any sort, if you break it down to little steps, you can celebrate each of those steps along your journey. So you're not going for this big thing at the end. You're actually, celebrating as you go there, because so many of us forget to celebrate those micro wins. So I think that's a really important thing to do. And also, if you know exactly where you're heading and you can put those steps into place, you know you're going in the right direction. Also remember that a bit of a blip is not a complete failure, and that's why goals are better than resolutions, because you don't have to, you don't eat a bit of cake and go, right, the diet's off, or right, I've messed it up. You can look at how far you've come, you can kind of pick that ball back up and go again, and then keep going along that path. But no, it's it's a marathon, not a sprint. Whatever goal you look for, whatever resolution you achieve, that's worth trying to go for.
And Ria, just very briefly, have you set a New Year's resolution?
No, I'd set a goal. I'd always set a goal rather than a resolution.
Fine, okay, I'm going to remember that. I need to set goals rather than resolutions. Ria Freeman, thank you very much for joining us live on BBC News. So, we have welcomed in the new year here in London. One of the next big celebrations coming our way is, of course, out of New York, which will be in less than 5 hours' time. Let me show you the pictures live from Times Square, which is where people will be heading for that world-famous dropping of the ball, and of course all of that ticker tape that also is in New York, and you see it on the pictures every year, that paper ticker tape going everywhere. Let us go live to Wendy Gillett, who is CBS News correspondent, and she is in Times Square. What is the atmosphere like there, Wendy?
Nikki, pretty excited, of course. We are just a few hours before New Year's Eve. The celebration here started about an hour ago with the raising of the crystal New Year's Eve ball, which is 12 feet in diameter, almost 12,000 pounds. This is a tradition that started here in Times Square back in 1907. But back then, that ball was not crystal as it is now. It was wood and iron. So we had the handing out of these wonderful hats as well. So I know you want one. Very, very attractive. And the security here, very tight. We've seen hundreds of officers down on the ground, police dogs patrolling, as well as officers peering out of office buildings, on top of office buildings, and a team from the NYPD setting up drones and flying them right here from this floor. So they're trying to get a look from every vantage point to make sure that everyone stays safe tonight. Nikki?
Wendy, please put the hat on for me. Please put the hat on for me. We can see everyone who's got the hats on. Go on, put it on. Go on. We need to see it across the world.
This is the worst hat ever. This is not an attractive hat.
Oh, it's New Year. It doesn't matter at all.
Kind of ridiculous.
You mentioned that the security is tight, but also that iconic ball that you mentioned. I was reading that it has 2,688 crystal triangles, and this is the last year I was also reading of this particular ball because they replace it every now and then.
Yes, they're going to have a new ball next year. They're going to put the current one on a display, an arts and culture display. But yes, a new one next year that's supposedly more digitized and more advanced. So I don't know how much more advanced you can make a ball that's crystal, but we will see.
And we, of course, are waiting for that moment for the ball to drop. But they, of course, Times Square also, there's a big show put on there as well with music acts as well to keep the crowd entertained, because I assume the crowd have already been there for hours.
Yes, I talked to one guy who has been here since 8 o'clock in the morning. He flew to New York from Japan just to see the ball drop. So this is something that really attracts people from all over the world. We already saw Rita Ora perform. Also on the docket tonight, we've got TLC, the Jonas Brothers, and the headliner Carrie Underwood. So it should be a great show. I actually am really surprised that there's fewer people here than many other years, even though the weather is mild. It's 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and rain is in the forecast, but we've had it rain in other years, and I've seen many more people. So it's a little confusing to me why there isn't more of a crowd.
Yeah, maybe it'll grow in the next couple of hours. Wendy, thank you very much for joining us live, and we really do love that hat. I honestly wish that I could be wearing one on my head right now, he says. Wendy Gillett, CBS News correspondent, live there in Times Square. And of course, we will bring you those celebrations here on BBC News from Times Square a little later here on the BBC News throughout the night. Of course, Brazil, Rio still to come as well. Indeed, it takes 26 hours from the first New Year to the last New Year, and that's because of the way that the international date and timelines work across the whole of the world. So that is why we get 26 hours of New Year celebrations. Let me end with some of the pictures that we have seen from across the world over the last few hours. Let's start off in Australia because it is one of the biggest, and these are the fireworks that were across Sydney, the Harbour Bridge there, lit up with the fireworks, which were also to music as well. About 1 million people, they reckon, packed into that area around the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. Let's move to Taipei now, and these are the pictures from the fireworks and New Year celebrations in Taipei. Happy New Year 2025. Of course, they will be the words that will be projected around the world there in Taiwan, in Taipei. From Taiwan, let us head to Hong Kong. Anyone who's been to Hong Kong will know that there is the harbour there, and that is where they light up the whole of that area with fireworks. A lot of those famous buildings in the harbour area of the city of Hong Kong, the banks, and they light them up. From Hong Kong, let's go to Dubai. The Burj Khalifa is the highlight in Dubai. Of course, that 830-metre tower there lit up. And finally, let's give you an idea again, if you missed it, of London. Here, some of the pictures of the fireworks in the last half an hour from here in central London. From all of us here at BBC News, thank you for joining us, and have a happy 2025.
Hello there. We've got more strong winds, heavy rain and some snow as we head into the new year. The heavy rain has moved away from Scotland, but it's moved further south, and it's across this part of northwest England that we have an amber rain warning from the Met Office. 100 millimetres of rain in the hills, likely to be flooding and travel disruption. There's our band of rain in the morning. Along the rain end, particularly south of it, some very gusty winds arriving, particularly so in the southwestern coastal areas. North of the rain band, the winds won't be as strong, but it's getting colder. There'll be some snow and ice to start the day in northern Scotland. Through the morning, this heavy rain and squally winds will push down into southern England. Then things calm down for a while. Another band of rain and hill snow moves southwards across Scotland towards Northern Ireland, later into northern England. Sunshine and snow showers continue in northern Scotland. And we're getting a northerly wind. It's not going to be as strong as the southwesterly wind ahead of the rain, but it is going to be introducing colder air. Last of any mild areas across southernmost parts of England, but it'll be a wet end to the day. That weather front does clear away, and then we introduce this Arctic air right the way across the whole of the country. Temperatures will be dropping. A widespread frost for Thursday morning. Could be some icy patches following any overnight showers as well. Most of the snow showers on Thursday are going to be across northern Scotland. A few wintry showers for Northern Ireland, near the west coast of Wales, more especially along some of these North Sea coasts. But for large parts of the country, it's going to be dry and sunny. Certainly going to feel a lot colder everywhere, but away from those North Sea coasts, at least the winds are not going to be particularly strong. But we're going to stay in that colder air as we head towards the end of the week, and there'll be some more snow showers across the north and northeast of Scotland, a few more wintry showers for Northern Ireland, perhaps towards the North Wales, and a few showers getting close to those North Sea coasts. But again, many places on Friday will be dry and sunny, and again it's cold. Temperatures in Scotland struggling to get above freezing. Things could get very interesting later in the weekend. This low pressure threatening to bring some wet weather into the cold air on Sunday, but ahead of that on Saturday, that weather front across the north may well bring some rain, sleet and snow to Scotland. One or two wintry showers further south. Some patches of fog for northern parts of the UK. The winds are going to be quite light. It is going to feel cold as we head into the weekend. Again, highs of only around 3 to 5 Celsius.
Ukraine is just about holding the front here while the Russians have launched this fresh assault.
Everywhere you look, there are uprooted trees, there are bits of building, and the destruction is just in every direction.
Incendiary drones were dropped here. We know this was the military junta because the rebels don't have that kind of weaponry.
While you can hear the tear gas canisters being lobbed at the protesters.
There when the story breaks. BBC News. Follow on the app.
The art of good conversation is to say the right thing at the right time and in the right way. You have to be original, sympathetic, encouraging, and also keep an open mind. And you really do just need to sit back and listen.
Katty Kay meets with legendary Olympic champions to find out what it takes to reach the top.
Influential with me, Katty Kay. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Michael Palin. Boy George. Juliette Binoche, welcome to This Cultural Life. Some of the world's leading artistic figures revealed to me their influences.
Suddenly there was a little glimpse that perhaps there was a future doing comedy.
And the experiences that have inspired their own work.
Art is so important because it really can transform you inside.
I'm very different to the person I was 10 years ago.
For a fascinating insight into what fires the creative imagination, join me, John Wilson, for This Cultural Life. Watch on iPlayer.
This is BBC News. We'll have the headlines for you at the top of the hour, which is straight after this programme.
This is the house I grew up in.
Hello there. We've got more strong winds, heavy rain and some snow as we head into the new year. The heavy rain has moved away from Scotland, but it's moved further south, and it's across this part of northwest England that we have an amber rain warning from the Met Office. 100 millimetres of rain in the hills, likely to be flooding and travel disruption. There's our band of rain in the morning. Along the rain end, particularly south of it, some very gusty winds arriving, particularly so in the southwestern coastal areas. North of the rain band, the winds won't be as strong, but it's getting colder. There'll be some snow and ice to start the day in northern Scotland. Through the morning, this heavy rain and squally winds will push down into southern England. Then things calm down for a while. Another band of rain and hill snow moves southwards across Scotland towards Northern Ireland, later into northern England. Sunshine and snow showers continue in northern Scotland. And we're getting a northerly wind. It's not going to be as strong as the southwesterly wind ahead of the rain, but it is going to be introducing colder air. Last of any mild areas across southernmost parts of England, but it'll be a wet end to the day. That weather front does clear away, and then we introduce this Arctic air right the way across the whole of the country. Temperatures will be dropping. A widespread frost for Thursday morning. Could be some icy patches following any overnight showers as well. Most of the snow showers on Thursday are going to be across northern Scotland. A few wintry showers for Northern Ireland, near the west coast of Wales, more especially along some of these North Sea coasts. But for large parts of the country, it's going to be dry and sunny. Certainly going to feel a lot colder everywhere, but away from those North Sea coasts, at least the winds are not going to be particularly strong. But we're going to stay in that colder air as we head towards the end of the week, and there'll be some more snow showers across the north and northeast of Scotland, a few more wintry showers for Northern Ireland, perhaps towards the North Wales, and a few showers getting close to those North Sea coasts. But again, many places on Friday will be dry and sunny, and again it's cold. Temperatures in Scotland struggling to get above freezing. Things could get very interesting later in the weekend. This low pressure threatening to bring some wet weather into the cold air on Sunday, but ahead of that on Saturday, that weather front across the north may well bring some rain, sleet and snow to Scotland. One or two wintry showers further south. Some patches of fog for northern parts of the UK. The winds are going to be quite light. It is going to feel cold as we head into the weekend. Again, highs of only around 3 to 5 Celsius.
Discovering the World's Table, we travel the globe, unearthing the history behind our most celebrated dishes. This is like a work of art. Meeting the people preserving local ingredients and those adapting traditions for modern tastes.
They call people from here potatoes. Yeah.
Potato people?
Yeah.
Each recipe tells its own unique story, bringing a fresh perspective on our changing world. Join me, Nick Quick, for Discovering the World's Table. Watch on iPlayer.
Live from Washington, this is BBC News. 2025 working its way across the globe. London joins the list of cities to see in the new year. In Georgia, thousands continue their protest against the ruling party into the new year. And we remember some of the celebrities who died this year by focusing on their pets. Stay with us, you'll see Tony LoBianco's Siamese cat and Shelley Duvall's cockatoo. Hello, I'm Carl Nassman. New Year's celebrations are underway across the globe, and the BBC is continuing to follow all the fireworks and all the festivities. Just about an hour ago, this was the scene in London. Tens of thousands of people there bringing in the new year. A massive fireworks display erupting along the River Thames around the historic Elizabeth Tower in Westminster, also known, of course, as Big Ben. Bird's eye view here of that scene showing the colorful spectacle that welcomed in 2025. And a short while ago in Paris, bringing in the new year in a spectacular fashion there. Millions of people all around the globe flocking to see the City of Lights every year in France during this festive time. People lined the streets there, toasted to the new year in that beautiful, beautiful scene there. And this is Berlin, Germany. Residents attending a massive open-air party at the Brandenburg Gate, considered to be one of the biggest New Year's Eve parties. And of course, right here in the U.S., we are about 4 hours or so away from New Year's. On the East Coast, fireworks, of course, expected in New York City. The famous ball will drop in Times Square as the clock strikes midnight. And about 2 hours away in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, they'll be welcoming there along the beach the new year, 2025, still on the way. Still a few hours of celebrations to go. Midnight still to come for North and South America. Festivities, though, began around 16 hours ago with New Zealand and Australia helping us kick things off. And our Nick Johnson has been watching.
The world welcomes 2025. Fireworks from the top of Auckland's Sky Tower, New Zealand's largest city, one of the first to see in the new year.
10, 9.
A couple of hours later, over the water, Robbie Williams led the countdown to Sydney's stunning display.
2, 1, Happy New Year!
The city's harbour bridge, the focal point of its 2025 welcome party. In Tokyo's Tokudai Temple, crowds line up to ring in the new year by striking the temple bell. As the clock struck midnight in Hong Kong, fireworks illuminated the sky above the Victoria Harbour. Beijing held its huge annual gala to start the new year. Taiwan welcomed 2025 with an impressive fireworks display using all 500 metres of Taipei 101. In the UAE, fireworks are set off from the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. And in New York, the Times Square Ball makes its way to the top of its pole, ready for the Big Apple's curtain to rise on 2025. Nick Johnson, BBC News.
And we'll continue to follow those New Year's celebrations as they happen around the world right here on BBC News. President Joe Biden, meanwhile, says the U.S. will offer federal assistance to the island of Puerto Rico after nearly all of the U.S. territory was plunged into darkness early on New Year's Eve. The cause of the blackout is still under investigation, but preliminary findings point to a fault in an underground line, according to Luma Energy. That's the island's main power distributor. The company said that fully restoring service could take between 24 and 48 hours. Earlier this year, Puerto Rico witnessed 2 blackouts. In June, 350,000 customers were left without power as temperatures there climbed, and more than 700,000 people lost electricity after Hurricane Ernesto back in August. On the night of New Year's Eve, Puerto Ricans are demanding more be done to address the island's ongoing power issue, with the incoming governor of Puerto Rico saying that the island's energy system is failing its citizens. For more on the situation there, I've been speaking to our North America correspondent, Rowan Bridge. Rowan, it looks like many parts of Puerto Rico will be entering the new year in darkness. What more do we know about this blackout and what caused it?
So this all started about 5:30 in the morning local time, and one of the local energy companies say they think that was caused by a fault on an underground cable, but they're still investigating it. But clearly the impact has been significant. I mean, at one point, almost 90% of the island was without power.
What's the reaction there been? I mean, so many people there without power. This must be prompting some frustration at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got a combination of frustration and anger specifically directed towards the power companies over all of this, because we've seen a number of these sorts of power outages from Puerto Rico really going back over years. This is not a new problem, and that anger has really boiled over. You know, I saw one local resident quoted saying that this was becoming part of everyday life in Puerto Rico. Wow. The current governor and the incoming governor have both expressed their anger and frustration over all of this, and that is directed towards the energy companies and the infrastructure of the island.
You mentioned, this isn't a new thing. There have been ongoing power issues, power outages in Puerto Rico dating back years. I mean, what's behind the broader issue on the island?
I mean, I think the fundamental problem that you face here is a lack of investment in the infrastructure, which has gone on over years. And specifically, if you want to look at one really pivotal event, I suppose you could look at Hurricane Maria 2017. That really damaged the infrastructure of the island. And yes, there has been investment since then, but clearly not enough to hold the system together properly so that you have situations like the one that we've got happening today.
And then, Rowan, how long is this power outage expected to last? We're talking days, weeks?
Yeah, I mean, the energy companies quoted saying that they think it will be between 24 and 48 hours, so up to 2 days for power to be restored. But that means a lot of people are going to be seeing in the new year in darkness rather than with fireworks.
Thousands of people in Tbilisi brought in the new year outside of Georgia's parliament. Protests have been taking place there every night for a little more than a month now, since the Georgian Dream Party, who some see as authoritarian and anti-European Union, claimed victory. It comes days after the new Georgian president, Mikhail Kavalishvili, was sworn in at a closed ceremony on Sunday. Mr. Kavalishvili's pro-European predecessor, Salome Zurabishvili, refused formally to step down, arguing that the election was rigged. Let's bring in now Stephen Jones. He leads a program in Georgian studies at Harvard University. Thank you for joining us tonight. Georgia's new president officially inaugurated, the outgoing president now refusing to recognize him as legitimate. Where do things stand in Georgia? Is this one country with two presidents?
It is one country with two presidents, both of them claiming legitimacy. The outgoing president, Salome Zurabishvili, claims that the elections that took place in Georgia on October the 26th were falsified and illegitimate, and that therefore she remains the legitimate president in Georgia. So that's the situation. You have a president, Salome Zurabishvili, who is outgoing, who is supported by the mass of Georgian citizens, and you have another president, Mikhail Kavalishvili, who is supported by the Georgian government, which is essentially a very small group of deputies and ministers, but they have the power of the police behind them.
It doesn't sound like a very stable situation. How do you think this ends up resolving itself?
Well, it's strange because, you know, in many ways you would think if there are 200,000 people out on the streets, and it's not just the capital city of Tbilisi, but other cities in the country, protesting against the government consistently this year, not only in the last month, that you would think that the government would get the message and would either call new elections or step down. But they are refusing to do so because they realize the stakes are too high. Should they step down, then many of them will probably end up in prison.
We saw just on Tuesday, the foreign ministers of Germany, France, and Poland said that Georgia should consider fresh elections as a way out of the country's political crisis. How realistic do you think that request is?
Well, it's the proper way to go, because most of the European organizations and internal organizations in Georgia that have observed the elections said they were not free and fair elections. And some went on to say that they were rigged and falsified. So, you know, that is the situation. You'd think that in this case, new elections would be the best possible solution. However, the Georgian government is refusing to acknowledge that request, and they will not, I am sure, will not accede to that request.
And in the meantime, of course, the Georgian Dream Party does have the majority. There's this new president now, Kavalishvili. What will all that mean, do you think, for the country and for the people's hopes of joining the European Union?
Well, the European Union itself has suspended negotiations with Georgia. So the European Union at this stage is telling the Georgian government it does not meet the requirements to join the European Union. The Georgian government itself has suspended negotiations with the European Union for 4 years. So it doesn't look like there's going to be any movement in that respect. The European Union has also, not the European Union, but some governments in the European Union have imposed sanctions on the Georgian government, as indeed has the United States. But I'm skeptical as to whether these sanctions will have any impact.
There are 4 main opposition groups in Georgia. They've rejected this new president. They've been boycotting the parliament. Do you have a sense of kind of what takes place next politically?
Well, this is the problem. You know, the opposition is not very well organized. The real power is with the government, who, as I said, have the special forces and the police behind them. And on the other hand, the people in the streets. There are, as you saw, probably 200,000 or so people collected tonight on New Year's Eve. And they weren't there especially to celebrate. They were there to protest what they see as an illegitimate and authoritarian government. So right now, it's a stalemate. We have to see what happens in the new year. This could go on for a long time. But my feeling is that eventually the pillars, if you like, the sort of institutional and popular pillars that are upholding this government will disintegrate, and there will be new elections at some stage.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you briefly, if you don't mind, about 20 seconds left, but do you see these demonstrations, these protests continuing? It's already been a month. Do you see them happening in the new year?
Yes, I was in Georgia in December. I went on to Rustaveli Prospect, which is the main thoroughfare in Tbilisi. I talked to lots of people. They are pretty determined that this will continue.
Stephen Jones, director of the program Georgian Studies at Harvard University. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Around the world and across the UK, you're watching BBC News. Let's take a look now at some of the stories making news at this hour. The veteran BBC DJ Johnny Walker has died at the age of 79, just 2 months after stepping down from the Radio 2 rock show and sounds of the 70s because of his ill health. He first joined the BBC in 1969 with his lunchtime Radio 1 show, pioneering new names such as Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, and Steve Harley. Wayne Rooney has left Plymouth Argyle by mutual consent 7 months after being appointed as head coach. Rooney recorded just 1 win in his last 14 games as manager, with a team now bottom of the championship table. The former England captain thanked fans for their support and said that Argyle would always hold a special place in his heart. And notable names have been reacting after being recognized in the New Year honors list. Stephen Fry said he was startled and enchanted to receive a knighthood, while the Happy Valley actor Sarah Lancashire said being made a CBE was an unexpected delight. More than 1,200 people have been recognized in the list. You're live with BBC News. The Panamanian president has said that the Panama Canal will remain in his nation's hands forever. Jose Molinos was speaking at an event marking 25 years since the United States handed over full control of the waterway. His comments come days after Donald Trump said that he wanted to reassert U.S. control over the vital link between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. The president who actually signed the treaty that laid the groundwork for the transfer of the canal was, of course, Jimmy Carter, who died on Sunday at the age of 100. His funeral proceedings are set to begin January 4th in his home state of Georgia before he'll lie in state at the U.S. Capitol, where the public will be able to pay their respects. Mr. Carter's single term in office was marked by brokering a treaty between Israel and Egypt in 1978, known as the Camp David Accords, but he left the White House as mostly an unpopular president facing an economic recession and the Iran hostage crisis that saw 52 Americans held hostage for some 444 days. Much of Jimmy Carter's legacy was built during his life after the presidency. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002 for his efforts to promote human rights and resolve global conflicts from Ethiopia and Eritrea to Bosnia and Haiti. Well, joining me now in the studio to talk about President Carter's legacy, Barry Bleckman. He co-founded the Stimson Center and served in President Carter's administration, both the Departments of State and Defense. It's great to have you here to talk about the former president. Let's start with the Panama Canal, maybe. Today, obviously, the 25th anniversary of that handover. This was something, as we heard, that he negotiated as president, but this was not a very popular decision at the time, was it?
No, but it was certainly the right decision. The U.S. was facing a guerrilla war. We had troops in the area surrounding the canal to protect it. And the government was threatening, the Panamanian government was threatening to drive them out. And having just gotten out of the Vietnam War, we had no interest whatsoever in getting into another guerrilla conflict.
What's your reaction? Are you surprised at all that the ownership of the Panama Canal is now bubbling back to the surface here in terms of politics and the incoming president, Donald Trump?
Oh, it's ridiculous, I think. It shows the contrast between President Carter and President Trump. It's not a serious proposal. The Panamanians have no interest in selling the canal, and they're not overcharging us the way it's claimed either.
I know you personally had conversations with President Carter. You were at the Brookings Institution, if I'm not wrong. Some might have dismissed him as a peanut farmer from the South, a small town in Plains, Georgia. Talk to us, though, about President Carter and his knowledge of foreign affairs.
Well, he was an extraordinary person. And the first time I met him, well, I didn't want to meet him. My boss at Brookings asked me to come to lunch with this former governor of Georgia who was running for president. I was working for some other candidates advising on defense issues. And I said, oh, no, I don't have time. And he told me I would go to lunch. So I went to lunch, and to my shock, I thought the man was terrific. He was very smart and very serious, and he understood the underlying problems. You know, there are conflicts, but there's usually something beneath them, and he understood that. And I got to know him pretty well during the campaign, particularly.
His biggest foreign policy achievement is probably helping to negotiate the Camp David Accords, which brought peace, really, between Israel and Egypt. It's one of the longest-lasting, most stable treaties the U.S. has ever helped negotiate. What did you make of that and the way that he really put such singular focus into what he did between those two nations?
Well, that was a very high priority for him, and that was one that it was his initiative to bring about peace between these countries. I think he was frustrated that it didn't continue, the process didn't continue after the Oslo Accords. But it was his persistence and his determination that brought a successful conclusion at Camp David. He kept them there. He wouldn't let them leave. They were supposed to go home long before they actually did. And he just kept driving this issue. We can work out this issue, and we'll work on that one afterwards, but let's sign this agreement. And he brought that peace. And that peace has lasted. Israel and Egypt, you know, they've been at peace ever since.
Jimmy Carter was, speaking of peace, really a pacifist. I mean, he likes to point out that on his watch, the U.S. didn't drop a bomb and didn't fire a missile. Does that tell us anything about the way that he approached foreign affairs as U.S. president? Well,
you have to recall that this was just a few years after Vietnam. Vietnam was traumatic for all Americans. Many Americans died. More Vietnamese were killed. It cost a fortune. It's what ruined the economy. Why he had left office with a bad reputation. Why Carter did was because the economy the inflation was driven by what had happened, and then the reaction to the inflation put us into a recession. So there was no interest anywhere in the country to get into a new war. He was a naval officer. He was a graduate of Annapolis. He wasn't a pacifist, but
he worked on a nuclear submarine, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yeah. Yes. He had no interest in getting the country into another war.
Just before I let you go, is there any memory of Jimmy Carter that stands out to you?
Oh, yes. I actually briefed him on the defense budget after he was elected, when he was president-elect in the Blair House. And it was the most extraordinary experience for me. And he had campaigned on cutting the defense budget by some large amount. And I helped to persuade him that a more modest cut would be a more prudent move. So that's a very clear memory.
Barry Bleckman, co-founder of the Stimson Center, served in President Carter's administration, the Departments of State and Defense. Thank you for your memories, and thank you for sharing those stories.
No, thank you.
Well, here's